I always like to go check on Facebook before I bring my guest up. So let me do that. Let's get some of this housekeeping out of the way to make sure we sound okay. Yep, we sound pretty good. I'm trying to do this at least once a month, every 2 months. Nothing super structured, but I found that I have a little bit of a kindred spirit with a guest that I met through Chastity Snowden, FLA Movement, nutrition, health coaching. Zuz works with her, so y'all can go check out Chastity. Thank you for the introduction. And then we got on one podcast. It's been a while. We've talked about this on and off. We talked about Peaky Blinders and The Last Kingdom and Game of Thrones. And so last month, we did a conversation based on Peaky Blinders, and it was fun. And today we're going to talk about The Last Kingdom. Now, I think she'll agree when she comes up. First of all, the did you know facts were not as good as Peaky Blinders. They're a little harder to find. But thankfully, I'm smart enough to get really good co-hosts because she's read the books. So we're going to do some differences between the show and the books. I've got some interesting facts of my own. Plus, I'm going to find out how she found the series and what drew her in. Let's pull this off. Let me just bring my guest up. I'm going to try to do her name again. It's like I get nervous every time. 3, 2, 1. Zuz Foldivoa.
Yes. Good job.
Don't you get tired of affirming me every time? Like, damn, dude, you got it now.
But you got it now.
You're
not making any mistakes. Good
job. I'm not gonna doubt myself anymore. All right. It is what is it? 8 o'clock over there, 7 o'clock in the evening?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. And I've asked you this before, but a lot of people will be listening to this for the first time when I put it on audio in a couple hours. What time do you normally go to bed? You're a health coach. Are you a routine? I go to bed at this time every night, or not really?
More or less, roughly. Like, we're in bed by 10, 11 p.m. most nights anyway. So,
or you get up early?
I don't. I like to sleep in.
I was expecting like a Jocko Willink, own your mornings. Yeah, I own it, but my morning may start at 9.
I mean, I went through phases of like waking up at 4 a.m. for coaching and all that stuff. And I'm not going to do that unless I have to. And hopefully I'm never going to have to do that again.
Well, technically speaking, morning starts when you wake up. So your morning
could
be
true. Yeah, that's true. But yeah.
Couple quick things. One, I saw you do a video yesterday. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it about lifting heavy. Are you lifting heavy enough? Didn't you do a little live thing?
I'm trying. Yeah. I did a little quick coffee chat in our Facebook group about lifting heavy and how you kind of, if you want to get strong, you kind of have to lift heavy. But I am trying. I'm struggling a little bit these couple days.
Are you really?
I'm just tired.
You're strong.
I went to train today, and as soon as I started, I got a cramp in my leg, which kind of, that's when I finished.
Well,
I'm just getting old.
No, you're not. Stop it right now. Don't do it. You're also doing Olympic lifting, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a different, it's all connected. It's not like you can isolate something. You're doing full body movement.
Yeah, no, like if one leg gives out, like I need legs for this. So there's not much I can do.
Well, so this will be a good transition. We talked about what it's like over there. I'm looking out the window. We have wildfires where I live right now in the mountains. We have wildfires everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. And so we're getting a just drenching rain the last 6 or 7 hours. It's supposed to end. And so we needed this rain, but kind of like where you're at, it gets dark now at 5:30 and it's cool and cold. And I asked you how it was. You're like, it's rainy and gloomy and cold, like the show we're about to talk about. But real quick,
there's mud everywhere, right?
Yes.
Just like in the show. There's
real quick, do you think that affects your workouts a little bit? Do you think maybe
it does?
Really?
Yeah. I'm like I said, I feel like sleeping, like just earlier, right? At 6 p.m. we were talking at 6 p.m. I woke up from a nap at like 5:30.
Wait a minute. Naps are underrated. Now, how long was your nap? Because anything over 20 minutes can be a little detrimental.
No, about 30 minutes roughly.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
About 30. Yeah. So
anything over 30 minutes or 45 minutes for me is not a nap. My body does not respond.
Yeah, that's just makes it worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, my naps are usually 20, 30 minutes. I don't sleep for very long anyway.
Yeah, and I'm now at that age where a good nap is a good thing. I like a good nap.
Comes with seasons for me.
You know, it's just going to sound really weird, and then we're going to talk about The Last Kingdom. but I can't sleep really well. I can't even nap really
Mhm.
well if my house isn't at least straight. If my house is straight, I can nap pretty well. It's really
Oh, wow.
weird. Yeah,
That's
it's really
weird.
weird. Yeah,
Yeah. You're weird.
I am. So I live with a dog. Hey, so how did you find The Last Kingdom? And I'll tell about my experience trying to
Yeah.
watch it. And were you hooked immediately, or did it take you a minute?
No, so it was one of those shows. I think it was on Netflix already because the show started originally on BBC. That's where I didn't pay attention to it, but it came up as like the suggestion on Netflix. You should watch this. So I'm like, okay. It just keeps keeps popping up like the ad you never pay attention to, but when you see it enough times, you're just like, okay, I'm gonna buy it. Um,
Add to cart.
yeah, exactly. It was kind of like that. So I started watching it, played episode one. I didn't get hooked. Like I was just like, nah, this is not working. So forgot about it for a little bit, and then again, it started popping up. And I think it was after me watching Vikings too, when I was looking for something very similar.
Mhm.
And they, suggested this, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it a chance. I'm gonna watch at least two episodes. I did, and that was it.
Got hooked.
Yeah, that was it.
I wrote down Vikings. I didn't know if you I like Vikings,
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
I did it reverse. What got me hooked into Vikings was, well, my progression went Game of Thrones, which I did not watch when everybody else watched it. I
yeah.
put it off for years. I was like, I'm not getting involved. And then COVID hit, and I'm about episodes into Game of Thrones, and I was like, oh, well, this is fantastic. And then I found The Last Kingdom, and then through that I found Vikings. And so The Last Kingdom, I kind of was like a Peaky Blinders experience for me. I tried the first episode like 3 times.
Mhm.
And what changed it for me is the same thing that changed it for the Peaky Blinders. Once I put the subtitles on and could understand the flow,
Right.
I knew I didn't have to worry about missing stuff. And then I was hooked on about the second or third episode. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
To be honest, for me, it was from like a female perspective as well. Once he kind of grew up, because like the first episode is mostly Uhtred being a child. So once he
Yeah.
kind of grew up, I was just like, oh, the main actor is pretty hot. Like, let's see where this goes. So
See,
that
you actually
kind of
admitted it. I like that.
yeah, no, that kind of was like, okay, like let's watch episode two. And if that doesn't work, then I mean, he's not even saving it. So, but he
Yeah.
did.
They took his shirt off a couple of times and you're like, "Oh, okay, I can still
Yeah.
watch this." Yeah.
I can get through this for one more episode.
Fast forward, he may take his shirt off again. You never know.
Yes.
All right,
That
well, let's
helps.
do this. I've got a couple of quick things, but so the time period is during the Vikings. It's the time period, and there is some historical truths inside the show. But I did not really realize you had read the books. So
Mhm.
you probably are much more well versed on the history of this thing. And I don't think much. I know there's some discrepancy somewhere,
Yes.
but between Game of Thrones and Vikings and this is kind of the most historically accurate, even though they take license with it, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So even like the writer at the end of each book, you kind of have like a little bit of like quick rundown of like, okay, this is what history knows is accurate, but this is where I kind of like made the story up so it kind of fits in a little bit.
Oh,
So
wow.
even there's like fun facts in there were pretty cool because you can look stuff up, and it brought me down the rabbit hole as well through like YouTube videos and like history, and I love that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of like, okay, let's watch 20 YouTube videos on King Alfred now and see what was actually accurate and what wasn't.
I read something about the author that he got the name of Uhtred from his family
Yes.
lineage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had no idea, and I think his family was Outhred, or he found it was more of an O-U-T instead of a
It
U-T-H.
was probably a different spelling back then, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned it because I forgot about it. Yeah, the author somehow found out that he is a descendant of the real Uhtred of Bebbanburg, and I mean the real history of Uhtred of Bebbanburg is completely different than the books.
Well, we're gonna get into that in a minute because real quick, I'm gonna tease it. I love you sent me an article. We're just going to go down them in a minute, but the very first one, I mean, number 10 is pretty good way to start. But in a minute, we'll talk about some of the differences. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it the history is completely different to what he made him out to be.
Yeah.
But that's good. I mean, it serves the story, right? The
Mhm.
rest of it, King Alfred and some of the big battles and the Vikings and Queen Ethelfled and all the others, like they were actual people.
Right.
And it just fit perfectly.
One of the things though, and I'll tell you a couple of things that the difference, and I don't know what else to compare it to other than Game of Thrones, maybe Vikings a little bit, but the Last Kingdom, the thing that a lot of people that I've talked to really didn't care for, and I did, was that the armies weren't as massive. I mean, it was the battles were, it seemed to me more realistic because it was a battle of a few hundred versus a few hundred
Yes.
rather than everybody has 40,000 people. And, and I love those big epic scenes,
Yeah.
but just this little castle over here had 65 people and you got 48 people. And I was like, that's probably how it really was more.
That's probably, and it is actually because again, reading the books, the way he kind of like explains and goes through like the scenes of the battles is great. Like a lot
Mm,
of times when you read books and they explain battles or one situation on 50 pages, you're just like, okay, skip, skip, skip. Who wins? What happens? Skip, skip. This was good because he also kind of like explained it a little bit, and when it was a good dynamic, and this was the thing, right, as well, because it when you think about, oh, massive battles, big battles, you think about, because you see it in movies, so many people. Well, this wasn't
right.
because
Yeah. They had some that were
right.
big, but most of
Mm.
them were,
Like
like I said.
real warriors, they were hard to find. And this is why, and he said it in the books, this is why the Vikings didn't go into big battles so often, because the real warriors were really hard to find. A
Yeah.
lot of times, even the English, they fought with the peasants, right? Just like the people, whatever they could find. So yeah,
Well,
it was very different.
it was like the movie 300 when
Yeah.
the Greeks were coming and he goes, "How many warriors did he bring?" I brought, 1,000 or whatever. And he goes, "What are you?" "I'm a potter." "What are you?" "I'm a blacksmith." And he, "What is your profession?" "Oh,
Yeah.
so it was kind of like back in those days, you put down your occupation to pick up a sword or a stick and go defend your village or
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah,
place.
yeah,
Yeah.
or whatever they had in a storage somewhere, you just got a rusty sword, right?
Yeah, I don't want a rusty sword. I don't want anything rust. I want to get a good one. I'll take one off a dead body or something.
Yeah,
That's what I'll
yeah,
do.
yeah.
How did you find the books?
I read it after the show,
Oh, so you
or
saw the show
during,
first.
yeah,
Okay.
after season 4, before, as I waited for the movie,
Uh-huh.
I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna read the books." And I got into it, and little did I know that there were 13 of them.
What?
There's 13 books.
So did they make the series like season 1 is book 1, season 2 is
No,
book 2, or they just combine the 13?
they combine them.
Okay.
Most of the season 1 is book 1. That's kinda how it starts, and I think a little bit of book 2, but then a lot of it is kinda, like, combined. Like, you can't even in the books, there are more characters, so some characters in the series are a combination of multiple characters in the books, which makes sense,
Right.
right? And
Right.
it was done really, really well. It was done really well.
After you watched it, then read it, did the characters make more sense to you? You're like, "Okay, now I can see how they combined 3 characters or 2 characters into 1," basically.
I
Did you're
I
like,
wouldn't
"Whoa."
say it made more sense, but I would say that I'm glad that they did, because if they did it the same way as the books are, it would just be a mush.
Too many people to keep up with.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So they did it really well.
Well, we're gonna get into your differences between the books and the show, but first, all right, so hold on. I should have done this beforehand, but this is why I love doing podcasts. So, Jon Snow is from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that. I'm gonna try to find it. I'm gonna find a picture of him. Hold on.
Correct.
Yeah, here we go. All right, and then Uhtred. I just like it makes me feel like I'm saying it right.
Uhtred.
I, yeah, Uhtred, but I know I'm not. I know I'm totally butchering that. Let's see if I can find one that allows me to cut. There we go. All right. So one of the questions I had for you was going to be, who are you taking? And this will be good for our video folks. Um, who are you taking in a fight? And I think I can try to pull it up. Let me see. Maybe not. I don't know. Who you taking? And Jon Snow, and I'll see if I can keep pulling it up. Who would you bring? Who would you take in a get down fight? Uhtred or Jon Snow?
Uhtred.
I wasted a bunch of words on that. You were going to answer that immediately.
No, Uhtred. Because I mean, I like Jon Snow and everything, but Uhtred was tougher. I think. I feel like Jon
Okay.
Snow was very much of like, I wouldn't say too sensitive because that's not a bad thing, but
Uh
it's
huh.
just.
Tell everybody what you said before we came on.
Oh
He
yeah, he cried too much.
he cried too much. I thought that was pretty funny. And don't you feel though? And I know we're not talking about this, the Game of Thrones, but don't you feel that that was more towards the last couple of seasons?
Yeah, when he started figuring out who he is
Right.
and kind of like got himself too much into of like, oh, like this is where I come from. It's so bad and I'm so sad. Yeah.
Yeah. There they are on
Oh
screen.
wow.
There they
Yeah.
go.
I mean, yeah, definitely Uhtred.
Just okay. Just I didn't ask who you'd rather go out with. I said who you taking in a fight because they were both good fighters, but I
Yeah.
liked Uhtred a little bit too because he seemed more warrior-ish.
He was like even in the show and definitely in the books, like that was who he was. Like he
Right,
was a warrior. He
right,
went into every single fight that I'm either going to die or I'm going to win. Like
right.
right, he was like this is who I am and I'm just tough. Jon Snow, nah, still
Not so
tough,
much.
but not as much.
All right, let's see if I can find the other one I was trying to look for. Maybe I can, it may be too much. I was going to ask you some other character comparisons. Let me pull that off. So there's also, of course, we had the Hound,
Yeah.
and then we also had the Clap. And you said his name is Clap in the show. I can't remember.
Clappa,
Clappa,
Clappa.
yeah,
Yeah.
Clappa. Okay, and so who would you take right there? See, to me, this is a tougher one.
But didn't we say wasn't the Hound with Steapa?
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. Alright,
Yeah.
let's do that one. The Hound and Steppa. Which one are you taking?
Oh, that one's yeah, I told you that one's tough because they're kind of very similar. They're
Mhm.
also very similar personalities.
Yep.
Oh man. Yeah.
Who you going with?
I gotta go with again, Stay Up probably from the Last Kingdom, I think. Just because he was kind of like a mentor to Uhtred and the one before I picked Uhtred, so it kind of makes sense.
I love Steppa. I love him.
Mm,
I gotta go with the Hound to me is one of my favorite characters, and if I'm
yeah,
like, it's like Michael Jordan hitting who you taking for your free throw, game-winning shot,
yeah.
I gotta go with the
I mean,
Hound.
I get it. The Hound was a great, great character.
Oh,
So
such a
this
good
is a
character.
tough one.
Yeah.
And again, it might be influenced by the books again because Steapa had a little bit more to do in the books, so he was there for much, much longer
Yeah.
um, than in the series. So kind of like that character was built up a little bit more in the books. So
All right, let's do one more of these because I like this. This makes me happy
this is fun.
now. Yeah.
Good job.
So the guy that played Klappa is
Mhm.
Magnus Samuelsson, who is a strongman, and then you have the Mountain, who was also I mean, he is one of the current strongmen. So my question is, and I think they're about the same size.
Are they?
I think so. Well, let's look at the benefit of a podcast. How
Mm.
how big was the Mountain? See, this we're looking up in real time. He is. Let's see. He weighed 200. No, this is stupid. Stupid. Come on. 6'9", 370 pounds.
That's
Well, so
crazy.
now they're saying he's 6'9", and yeah, 370 pounds. mountains. All right, and then how big was the guy who played? There we go. Uh, he's 6'7",
Mhm.
and he weighs. Let's see. He's about not much smaller than him. He's 6'7" and weighs 340.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's not much of a size difference,
No,
really.
they're pretty much the same.
Yeah, they're about the same. And the only reason that the mountain is probably going to get. I'm going with the mountain pre that whole changing him into a monster
Mhm.
thing. I mean, that was silly.
I would again, a tough one because kind of like the Klappa had a whole personality in The Last Kingdom, right?
Right,
He was a funny character.
right,
Mountain was kind of just like something humongous.
right.
But the Mountain had probably better scenes, and we all probably know which ones I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah.
Those were badass, so
They
I'll
were.
go with them now.
Okay, see, me and you're gonna flip it. I'm going with
You
my
go with
boy. I'm gonna
Klappa.
clap on this one. Yeah, he was quiet, and I think I just liked them both. I liked them both, but
Mhm.
I didn't like the Mountain because he was an asshole in the
Oh,
show.
he was, yeah,
Yeah, and I
but
didn't like that. That's the reason I like the Hound. I
mm,
mean, I like the Hound versus him any day. So I
yeah,
took
that
Klappa. I'm trying to think if there's even other characters in there worth comparing.
was
Who was the badass in Game of Thrones? Oh, Arya. Arya versus what's the
Ethelfled, the
yeah.
princess or the queen?
No, I was thinking of just whoever the toughest girl, on Game of Thrones,
Yeah,
Arya,
that was Arya.
Arya, but then the badass in The Last Kingdom was Uhtred's girlfriend originally. They ended up getting pregnant. Remember his girlfriend that they grew
Oh,
up
the
together,
Brita.
Brita.
Yeah,
So they were the
yeah,
two kind of female badasses in that
yeah,
thing.
but she got crazy at the end.
Well, yeah, but I mean, she still could fight. I don't know. One of them killed the White
There were
Walkers.
a few badass women in The Last Kingdom because there was Brita, obviously the main
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Then there was Hilt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she was a badass. And then there was even his daughter when she grew up.
Oh, I forgot about that in the last couple.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
pretty good.
yeah.
It was pretty
They were pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah, the Game of Thrones loses a little bit there. They had a couple, but nothing like that. Oh, the girl that was the Iron Islands girl, she was pretty good.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she was pretty good too.
It was the sister of
Theon.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So these comparisons is what drew me in,
Uh-huh.
and we're not doing it now. We won't go down the rabbit hole, but even more of a badassery is in the Vikings. Some of the women in there, and I was like, okay, well, we're just changing the game now. There's uh,
I agree, I
if
agree.
I gave you one series you had to go watch and you couldn't watch any of the other ones, you could only watch one and just keep it in your library and pull it up. Would it be Game of Thrones, Vikings, or The Last Kingdom?
I think The Last Kingdom.
Yeah. I've said this to people before. I love Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
but The Last Kingdom is better for me.
I mean, the Game of Thrones I like. I wouldn't say that I love it just because again, the good old excuse because of the end. The
Oh,
ending of it, I'm just like disappointed. But again, I read the books of the or whichever ones are available. And even that I forgot so much that was written there. And they're this thick when it comes to like the Game of
oh,
Thrones, right?
really? Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, I read that for nothing because I don't remember anything.
Well, by the time you get to the end, you forget the
By the time
beginning.
you get to the end, it just makes no
Yeah.
sense.
Once upon a time, the end. I
Yeah.
don't know what the hell just
And
happened.
I'm definitely not gonna reread that.
Well, and the thing that I liked a little bit, I mean, they hinted to magic and sorcery, but it was
Mhm.
not. It was more of mind tricks, not
Yeah.
real magic. So you could actually see how you're using trickery on people,
Yes.
but it wasn't real. Um, and then let's skip forward, and this is a spoiler if you've never seen Game of Thrones. I mean, The Last Kingdom. I'm going to talk about the ending now. 3, 2, 1. Now it's on you. If you listen, you're screwed. I loved the ending. Real quick, the only thing I think that could save still Game of Thrones is if they came out with other little spinoff shows that cleaned it up. Like if they came out with snow or
Yeah.
something that started making sense of why they ended it in such a,
Mhm.
I mean, it was an okay, I didn't mind the ending because you had 3 or 4
Yeah.
different things, but there was no
It's
closure.
still it still kind of feels rushed, and
Mhm.
again, like, with the source that they had, right? Like, the story is not finished, and it's not written, and the books are not finished yet. It's tough to do anything like that, I would assume. But it still kind of felt rushed, and even the last season, like, they were building up, building up, building up, building up, and then all of a sudden at the end of it, it's not even like the whole season, but like um the whole show, you were thinking like, oh, those White Walkers, oh my God, they're such a, strong, and everyone was afraid of them, and all of a sudden they just died just like that. So the
Yeah,
buildup of their, like their myth and everything kind of just like disappears.
I was the only thing that disappointed me real I didn't mind that the big battle. What disappointed me more is the last 2 or 3 episodes of Game of Thrones felt like, to your point, they were trying to, "We gotta wrap this up, and so let's try to
Mhm.
squeeze another season's worth of how did we go from there to there, and it's over all of a sudden." I mean, they
Yeah,
went straight from beating the Night Walkers to the season's over,
season,
and you're
yeah.
like, I mean, the whole show's over. You're like, "Well,
Mm,
that's all,
yes,
really?"
yeah,
I
yeah.
was there's no other
I'm
plot?
sure there's much more that
Oh,
happens
yeah.
there.
I'm sure. Well, so you've read the books, The Last Kingdom, the ending, the movie, the way it ended, was it in
Yeah,
conjunction with the book?
it was very similar. Even like the atmosphere I felt was very similar
Uh-huh.
around that, with the ending. I mean, obviously, some of the things were slightly similar in the books, and just because I think that's because of some characters that they kind of squeezed together into one, right?
Mhm.
But generally, yes, I'm satisfied with kind of like the both.
Well, I need you to remind me
Mhm.
because it's been a while since I've seen it. It's a couple of months because I watched it twice, the final inning. But again, spoiler alert. Tune away now. Turn out now. But at the ending, he's standing there. Uhtred is standing there, and on his right, he has what's going on currently, and he's been hurt, right? But he sees he could go back to them, and on the left, he sees all of his friends that have been killed or passed, and they're at the feasting table. Did he actually pick one? Because they were like, "Come on," and he was smiling.
Well, it wasn't like directly mentioned, but
Right.
technically yes, because at the end of this is one of the differences between the books and the show. Like, obviously in the show they kind of like imply that he's getting
Right.
older, right?
Mhm.
But the character doesn't change, which I'm fine with, right?
Mhm.
Like, you picked one, it would be weird just to make him artificially old. Like, they still can't do it, so don't
Mhm.
even try and bother. And you're not going to change a main actor, right?
Right.
Or lead actor. But it's implied that he's getting old. In the books, he is old. He's gray. He's just like wrinkly. And at the end of it, he achieved everything that he wanted. Like, he's
Ah,
back in Bebenberg. He has his heir. He basically is feasting with his friends. He's ready to go.
gotcha. Yeah. I just remember how satisfying it was where he actually had the choice. Like, okay, they're good here because I think he was injured in the show. I think he
Yes.
had been injured. So if I go back, if they're without me, they're still fine. Over here, it was a good ending for me. I
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah.
And I would have gone to the table too.
And he kept
Yeah.
saying the whole, like, the story, like, he can't wait to be with his friends and enemies in Valhalla one day. Like, he
Yeah.
knows he's gonna go there.
Yeah. See, you got me. So the one thing I'd use from a music, I don't know. Are you a big workout music? Is the music you listen to a big part of your workouts?
Not really.
No, well then never mind. Okay, good. Way to make me
I
feel
mean,
like
I still do, but it's just like when I'm working out, half of it, I'm kinda, like, zoned down and I don't know what's playing.
there I go down there's and you can get it without the cuss words, but I listen
Mhm.
to like rap music except for Vikings, the Vikings show, like it's got
Okay.
Eminem, 50 Cent, it's got all of the and it's to Vikings, this TV show.
Oh, cool.
Oh, and it has got so there's one about Who Wants to Be King that they did the Viking scene.
Yep.
So I just listened to it all morning while I was getting the crap kicked out of me boxing. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool.
you should like it. All right, let's do this. You want to go down through here the top 10 things that were different from the books to the
Yeah,
can I start
we
us off? I just want to start us off on number 10 because I thought it was pretty funny.
can.
And you know what I'm gonna say, right?
Yeah.
Uhtred was too pretty.
In
So
the
how do they
show?
in the show? Yeah. Yeah.
But, I mean, they never really say how pretty I don't think they really say how pretty he was in the books. I just remember him being blonde.
Right. And I
But
think he was actually bigger.
yeah, but he got the girls in the books as well, so I'm
Mhm.
just like, I'm pretty sure, and he was a warrior, so, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think he was ugly.
Can you imagine though if they made him blonde? You'd be
No.
like, no.
Come on.
I have another quick side question for you.
Mhm.
Are you a Conan the Barbarian fan?
I have to be.
You are, aren't you?
I
I am
am.
too. I love it. I used to read those books growing up, the
No,
paperback.
I never read the books. Obviously, it's just a movie, but my boyfriend just loves it. I mean,
Oh, I
we've seen
love
it
Conan.
multiple times.
So you need to go. You think I'm serious kidding? Those paperback books are easy reads and they're
Mhm.
super entertaining for just filling your brain with just entertainment stuff, like just adventure.
Right.
And once you've read the books, you'll understand that Arnold Schwarzenegger was built to play Conan the
Play
Barbarian.
him. Yeah.
That's he is the main guy. So all right, number 9, the merging of Harold Bloodhair and Cigar. Oh, Sigurd.
Secret. Yeah, this
Sigurd.
is what I was talking about. Like some of the characters in the stories were kind of mushed together
Mm,
in the show, right? So it says here in their adaptation of the books, the characters of Sigurd and Harold Bloodhair were merged into one character called Sigurd Bloodhair, which, yeah, obviously.
yeah.
Which was, I think that was a good choice. See, like this is the thing with the Last Kingdom as well. Like sometimes when you have the adaptation of the books, it just doesn't work out because they just might change it too much or it's just not working for the TV. But this, even with the changes, I think the way they did it was very sensitive and very, very good and served the story because there would just be way too much going on.
Well, there's series out there. Like I love Boardwalk Empire. It's pretty good. I like
Mhm.
it, but it's got a lot of characters. And sometimes if you get a lot of characters, it is easy to lose track of now who
Yeah.
said that and which one's the real bad guy. And so
Mhm.
the one thing I like Last Kingdom is it went through the bad guys and girls like a Pez dispenser. I mean, one got dismissed, the other one pops up. And it's
Yeah.
kind of clear you're not ever worried who the bad person was. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Number 8, Uhtred and Ethelfred.
So
Fans of the
this
oh, go
one
ahead.
is a little bit inaccurate because I think this was before season 4
Oh, okay.
aired. Because in the books it says here that Uhtred and Ethelfled, which is a daughter of King Edward, they're lovers. But here, apparently in the show, it ends with their one kiss. Well, if we watch it to the end, we know that it doesn't end just with one kiss.
No, no.
It's a full-on probably relationship and romance. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Didn't they
they
have kids? I thought
no,
she had a they didn't?
no, they didn't have. She did have a child, but she had a child with the Viking
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
took her captive.
That's
Yeah,
right.
she had a
Okay.
daughter. Yeah.
Now I have to go back and watch that. See, it's been a minute. I should have probably watched that this week. Then the number 7 is Uhtred and Skade. Now, Skade to me was a very different character. She was crazy. She was just, batshit crazy, which is fine. Um, but I was surprised. Um, anyway, I was surprised at how that relationship ended, to be honest with you.
Mm.
I was
Me
like,
too.
I was
Me
like,
too.
wow, well, that's that he snapped out of that pretty quick.
That was a good, I would say, or good scene because
It was a
everyone.
good
I mean,
switch.
pretty much everyone. I'm sure everyone was convinced that okay, she got him, but then no, she didn't.
No, and he so in TV Skate bloodthirsty seer who curses Uhtred attempts to become his lover in order. She was an easy to hate. Viewers cringing hard when he and Skate almost intimate in the river. Yeah, whatever. Number 6, the surviving son. So, what was different about this in the book? Do you remember?
Um, in the series, he's left with one son,
Right.
right? In the books, he's got two actually.
Oh, really?
One who is the monk, right?
Mhm.
And one who's the warrior. And in the series, again, another character that's kind of mushed with two people. So in the books, there's one son who becomes a monk, and Uhtred feels um, betrayed, right? Because he becomes a monk and a Christian.
Mhm.
So that was his firstborn. So he takes the name Uhtred away from him and calls him, I don't even remember what, because he betrayed him at some point, and gives the firstborn name Uhtred, to his second son, who did become a warrior. Yeah.
So, but he also Uhtred had a daughter.
Yes.
So, did they combine? Because she was kind of
No,
a
the daughter
badass.
is still there.
Okay,
No.
was she the
So
same
in the
way in the
book,
book?
he had, yeah, 2
Okay,
sons and 1 daughter. In
okay.
the show, it's only 1 son and a daughter.
I thought they might have taken the badassery from that second son and put it over into his daughter because his daughter was pretty tough.
Oh, she still was in the books.
Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't know. Okay,
And but she died in the books.
I don't like that.
Yeah, she died. Do you remember the scene, or the part where, what was his name? She married the Viking, the
Um.
young guy, the young
Oh yeah,
kid?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so she married him, and there
Mhm.
was a battle. He got killed, and in the books, she got killed that time as well.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I remember her marrying that guy now.
Yeah.
Uh, Osford. I don't know how to pronounce the name. O.S.
Oscar.
Osford. So his toughness in the TV show, he's a monk, illegitimate son of King Alfred, who doesn't seem to have a warrior's bone in his whole body. Is that the way he is in the books?
A little bit. I think it was pretty accurate to how he was portrayed in the books.
Yeah, because he developed into a pretty tough
Yeah,
guy.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, doing
'Cause
his
at
thing.
first he was very, shy and afraid and not really battle type, but later on he learned. Yeah, he learned.
Number 4, Ragnar's death. Do you remember
Mm.
that at all?
Let me see.
So
Oh,
fans,
yeah,
yeah.
he did die in the books, but I don't remember how.
Well, fans of
Oh,
the
they
TV
didn't say how he died, I don't think.
snuck in. Oh yeah, well in the show he got stabbed to death
Oh, yeah,
by
yeah, yeah, yeah,
what's his
yeah.
name in the tent.
Yes. So in the show, he got stabbed while
Right.
sleeping, right? In the
Mhm.
books, he just passed away because
Oh,
he was just old.
I like the TV show way better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was
Yeah.
better done in a TV show because it kinda gave Uhtred a reason for a revenge, and, just but
Well,
in the books, he kinda, like, got tired of the Viking life and just wanted to, live out peacefully.
and Arthur, what's his name? The little weird dude that killed Ragnar, Arthurwald. What do you call him?
Weston?
No, Athelwald.
Ethelwald,
Athelwald.
yes.
Well, I can't. I told you before we started this. I'm Southern United States. I'm going to butcher any name
That's
that
okay.
requires any sort of delicate touch or thoughtfulness because I'm a.
I just remember how they called them in the show. That's how I
Oh,
pronounce it, because I was just like,
he was
"Oh."
just a rat. That
Yes.
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
So
was.
him in Game of Thrones, the guy that got killed at the end by Arya that cut his throat, the other guy
Ooh,
that started all the trouble. Every show has that sneaky little.
sneaky little snail.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh,
He
what are they
was
talking about Steppa? Number 3. See, I haven't read this. What's still a Steppa? Fans of the books can never forget Steppa, a beast of a man who becomes loyal to Uhtred and Alfred is a fierce warrior. Despite being a fan favorite, his character was inexplicably merged with
so
Lufrix for the
French.
I don't
I can kinda see that a little bit, but I wouldn't say it was so obvious. I mean, Lofridge still had a big part in the
yeah.
books. Like, he was his mentor, right? I mean, the only way I can kinda see it is because Lofridge in the books, he was there for so much longer. Like, he was a bigger part of the books than he was in the show. And Steapa, is that his name?
Yeah, step.
Yeah, he he wasn't there as much, I would say.
He had roles, but just he came and went.
Yeah.
But I guess the reason I read that a little differently is I thought they were going to say, because both of those were TV characters. I thought they were going to say they combined them into one character in the show, and I'm like, no, they were both. So they're just saying one was a little more minimized, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Uhtred and Hild are,
Hild.
yeah,
Yeah.
the warrior priestess or
Hmm.
whatever she called herself. I loved her character.
She was awesome.
She was, and
She
that's the
was,
other badass girl I
she was a
forgot about.
badass,
Yes,
and
she was.
she was fighting in like in whatever in a dress. That was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. She would
Um,
pray for you or kill you, either one.
yes.
Yeah,
But yeah, in the books, their relationship was a little bit different. In the show, she is a priestess, right? She's kind of again one of his mentors, I would
right.
say. And in the books, they actually have a relationship.
Well, one of the best lines, and it says it right here, and I would have remembered it. You're too good a woman for God alone. So I
Yeah,
guess in the books, he took that to heart and said,
yeah,
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 and
yeah, yeah. And I mean, it was very similar. It was consensual, and it was like,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm a priestess, and whatever. But it was still very, very well done.
Well, in the movie, I mean, in the show, she laid down her priestess and her Christianity to pick up a sword from
Hmm.
time to time as well. She went through that period where the cross came off a little bit and she picked up the sword. So, it's like real life. Sometimes we live more by our principles than we do at other times.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
all right, number one, and I'm just going to be honest. I can't pronounce this girl's name, so the character.
Isolt.
Thank you. I'd have said something like Asa Holt, huh? What the
Isolt.
hell did you say? Did you watch the show ever? Have you ever watched the show? So what was different about their relationship? She was very important in the show to him.
She was the love of his life, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, and it was the same in the books, but I think the difference that they claim here is that in the books, um, they kind of so in the TV show, you remember how she got like saved,
Uh-huh.
and then he kind of took her, and it took a while before those two kind of fell in love, and she had those powers. While she has the powers, right, or she has the powers while she's still a virgin. So
Right.
it kind of like it took a while before their relationship kind of moved somewhere.
Mm.
But in the books, it was pretty quick. So
Oh,
it's just like, nah. I
and I'll
mean,
give this up. There
let's
you go.
just get this over with.
Let's roll.
It's gonna happen either way.
But I got to be honest with you. That's some strong attraction to give up the power she had. She had some pretty good power.
Yeah, she did.
I mean, so to give that up, Uhtred probably did
Mm.
took his shirt off one time like he was in the river or
Yeah,
something. And she's
she
like,
was
well, I mean, it's just
well,
power.
okay. I mean, it's worth it.
Sure. Why not? Of course. Give up eternal power.
Right.
So anything else you want to give out about the books or anything about the show that you want to wrap it up with or we can bring up and talk about, or is there something else you noticed?
I mean, I think we mentioned a lot. Like I always keep saying, like, there's a very, very few shows or books adapted to shows that are done so well. Like most of the time when I read books and then they make the show, I'm just gonna criticize it most of the time because it's just like
Do you
you
feel that
guys,
same way
you know,
about what's the Hobbit one? The Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings. I didn't finish the books there. Like that's one
Oh,
of the yeah, that's one of the ones where I'm just like I'm much because the movies are so great that I mean, yeah, no, I just love the movies, and I didn't finish reading the books because there was a lot going on.
so are you also a fan? And I think I've asked you this, and I apologize, but are you also a fan of what's the? And I've never seen I've never seen the movie. What's the one with the wizards?
Harry
Uh,
Potter.
yeah, are you a Harry Potter fan?
Yes, and I'm glad I'm a book fan. I've seen like 2, 3 movies, I think. Um, and the main reason behind this is like Harry Potter was coming out as I was growing up. I
Mm,
remember reading the first couple or 3 books. Literally, they came out. I was, supposed to be asleep, but I had my flashlight under the covers reading
Oh,
the Harry Potter book. And as I was growing up, they were coming out. And then the movie started, and I was just like, nah, you know what? Like, this is kind of like my childhood picture of it. This is how I imagined it, where I read it. They're kind of doing a good job, but it's still not the same. So I'm just not gonna like the Harry Potter
wow.
world is right here. I don't need the movies.
That's pretty good discipline, though, because it
Yeah.
would be pretty tempting to go see something that was so meaningful. It would be pretty tempting to go see how they portrayed it. So
And
good for
I
you.
said, like, I've seen a few movies, but it's
Yeah.
just like wasn't it.
Mhm.
And I've recently been thinking about rereading the books because it's been
Ah.
years. It's been a lot of years. So I'm really curious about what it's going to look like
Well, I'm
now.
looking it up while you were talking, and I asked the question to the Google. That's how us old
Hmm.
people call Google. The Google.
The Google.
Is Vikings based on a book, the series, the Viking series?
Hmm.
And it says it takes inspiration from the Norse sagas, stories about voyages and battles written in the
Yeah.
13th century. So I haven't read any of that. Have you read any of that stuff?
No, not really, but
No.
those are kind of like the old kind of like sagas that they kind of like
Yeah.
talked about, right? And then eventually someone written down in Middle Ages, I would assume.
Yeah. I'm
So
gonna have to go
that's where
read
it
some of
kind of,
those.
yeah, that's where it kind of, I think, gets the inspiration. I have one favorite one. I don't know if you've ever heard of Philip Pullman,
Mm-mm.
the Golden Compass series.
Okay. I've heard of the
Ring a
Golden
bell?
Compass. I've heard the Golden Compass.
They made it into a movie, but again, it's a trilogy of the books. Another one that I read when I was growing up and kept going back to. And recently, a few years back, HBO started adapting it to a TV show, and they've done season 1, season 2, and I think they're about to finish with season 3. And it was again one of it's a kids book, kids fantasy book, right? But
Yeah.
like pretty pretty good to like kind of like read, and I just kept coming back to it over and over again, and HBO adapted it to the show. And again, one of those, because I'm very critical of it, it was done pretty well. It was,
Really?
yeah, like they stuck to the books quite a lot.
Do you think I would like it based off that, or is it or
I think you would.
I might have to go
It's
try it.
don't think Game of Thrones. Don't
Mhm.
really think Harry Potter, but something kind of like in between, just like a different girl traveling different worlds in a way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Kinda
So
like the Narnia thing,
kind of like the
yeah,
Narnia. Yeah. Kind
Witch
of
in the
like
Road. Have you seen Shadow and Bone?
no, I haven't. I'm kind of like I'm still avoiding it.
It's not bad. It's not
It's
bad.
not bad.
It's not bad.
Because again, like I've read some reviews, and it was one of those things where like people who read the books, they hate the show.
Yeah, I've never read the book, so I have
Yeah,
nothing
no.
to base. Sometimes not reading the books is you might
Is
like the show
yeah,
better.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the Witcher case. Not
Oh,
playing
we
the
can talk
games
about
and knowing the lore.
I'm sorry. I've never read the book of the Witcher's books or
Mhm.
whatever. And okay, so let's go back. We'll wrap it up here in just a second, but let's go back and talk about too many characters and not enough cohesion. That's what got me with The Witcher.
Yeah.
There's so many characters they're referring to. They've never developed any storyline behind that they'll refer to them. And I'm going, well, who's
Who
Two
is
Thumb
that?
Willie? I've never heard of that dude in
And
this
you have
day.
no chance of knowing it because you've never read it or you probably never played the game.
It's almost like they didn't do the job that The Last Kingdom did in saying, okay,
Yes.
let's take 3 characters, combine some of that into one, so then people have something to kinda resonate with.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I can't get into The Witcher, and I wish I did because I love him as an actor, and he fits a
Mm,
part,
yeah.
you know?
And I feel very sorry for him as well because he loves The Witcher. He loves the whole lore and is looking forward to like playing it. And
Yeah.
they just did him dirty there.
I will say this, if they were ever going to revamp Conan the Barbarian, he would probably be a decent one to look at.
Yeah. He can get
Yeah.
big.
Yeah, he can get big for roles, and he's got that very stoic
Hmm.
look. So if you've seen Conan the Barbarian, then you know one of my favorite lines in there is, the lamentations of their women, that quote of
Oh,
what's your
yeah.
purpose?
Yeah.
I used to have that on a T-shirt when I worked out all the time back when
Oh,
I was
really?
in my when I was in my 20s. I had that. He's sitting there like this, and it's got the whole quote right there. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, I used to love that show. Yeah, this was fun. I love it. Now we got to come up with what we're going to do next. So we'll figure that out. But if you're okay with it, maybe sometime in the next month and a half or so, we'll
Yes,
jump back on here and do it again.
we could do like a Christmas one.
Ooh, yeah. Do you have any ideas of what you want to look at, or you want to talk about that offline?
We can talk about it offline. Come
Yeah.
up with something.
Yeah, we'll come up with something. We'll do one maybe the week before Christmas or something like that.
Yeah.
I hope you have a fantastic night. I was about to say day.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
I'm
you
gonna
have a
go have a
wonderful
good
day.
day. Yeah, I'm gonna have a good day. Hey, Zeus, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This was
Bye.
fun. Bye, everybody.